The words Bob Holly and main event are not often found in the same sentence. Bob Holly's 15-year career in the WWE was a run spent at the bottom of the card, generally putting over other wrestlers and occasionally eking out wins against fellow undercard mainstays. But in 2004, the man calling himself Hardcore Holly would get a brief shot at the top. It would be the highlight of an otherwise unremarkable career, and all it took to get there was a broken neck. This is Lucky Break, the main event push of Bob Holly. Robert William Howard Jr. first appeared in the WWE as Bob Holly, working as enhancement talent and teaming with Mike Sample in a loss to the Bushwhackers that aired on the March 30th, 1991 episode of WWF Superstars. After a run in Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Holly would return to the WWE in 1994, making his television debut at the Royal Rumble under the name Thurman Sparky Plug. Vignettes had aired the previous month, hyping the young superstar as a stock car racer turned professional wrestler. Dissatisfied with his ring name, Thurman would revert to the Bob Holly moniker later that year. Holly would find limited success initially, mostly being utilized in the undercard and appearing on television only sporadically at times. His major earlier accomplishments would include winning the WWE Tag Team Championship with the 1-2-3 Kid at the 1995 Royal Rumble, as well as a victory over Jeff Jarrett for the Intercontinental Championship in May of 1995. This title change was not recognized, and the decision was overturned that same episode. All for All, a legitimate shoot fighting tournament. Holly would be eliminated in the first round of this tournament by his tag team partner and eventual Brawl for All winner, Bart Gunn. However, Holly would have the distinction of being the only opponent Bart Gunn failed to knock unconscious. From here, Holly would unite with other lower card wrestlers to form the Job Squad, a stable of wrestlers primarily known for losing. In early 1999, Holly would rename himself Hardcore Holly and began competing primarily for the WWE Hardcore Championship, a title which he won 6 times. His on-screen cousins, Crash and Molly Holly, would later debut, and Holly would spend much of the next year fighting with and alongside them. Lesnar, a former amateur wrestler, had captured the 2000 NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship his senior year at the University of Minnesota, before signing with the WWE in 2000 and being sent to the company's developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling. For a wild brawl would ensue. Lesnar would hit a belly-to-belly suplex, sending Holly flying across the ring, escape the move, leading to the next sequence of maneuvers. However, Lesnar failed to complete the rotation, not lifting Holly high enough for him to escape the spot. Unable to support the weight in such an awkward position, Lesnar dropped Holly directly on his head, causing a disc in his neck to rupture and cracking his vertebrae. It's been speculated by fans that Holly purposely sandbagged Lesnar in an attempt to make him look bad. This accusation is born out of Holly's reputation for being a backstage bully, a reputation that is not wholly unjustified. In his book, The Hardcore Truth, Holly blamed himself for the botch. However, Holly insists that the botch was not intentional, and further states that he spoke with WWE management to let them know that Lesnar was not responsible for the injury. Holly would not realize the extent of his injuries right away. In fact, he would attempt to wrestle on that week's series of house shows, but would find himself in intense pain following a simple bump. At this point, Lesnar was at the tail end of a long feud with Kurt Angle, which included the main event match at WrestleMania 19. Team Lesnar, featuring Brock, A-Train, Big Show, Nathan Jones, and Matt Morgan, was set to take on the still incomplete Team Angle at that year's Survivor Series pay-per-view. The next week, during a backstage interview with Josh Matthews, Kurt Angle would announce that Bob Holly would be joining his team at the Survivor Series. Bradshaw, Chris Benoit, and John Cena would be named as the other members. 2003 SmackDown Survivor Series match to a more subdued pop. He would attack Lesnar as soon as he stepped on the ring apron, knocking him to the floor. The two would brawl on the outside before Holly would whip Lesnar into the steel steps and begin raining blows down upon him. WWE official Brian Hebner would attempt to end this assault, only to be violently pushed away leading to Holly's disqualification from the match. After much protest, Holly would agree to leave the ring area, and Team Angle would go on to win the match, with John Cena and Chris Benoit being the surviving team members. Lesnar would focus his anger on Chris Benoit, who had forced him to tap out during the Survivor Series match. The November 27, 2003 episode of SmackDown would feature a satellite interview with the still suspended Hardcore Holly. The on-screen graphics and camera equipment visible in this interview would lead the viewer to believe that it was being conducted from the local Mobile, Alabama UPN affiliate. However, commentator Michael Cole would state that Holly was actually speaking from his home. In this interview, Holly would state that he had appealed the suspension and that sooner or later it would be lifted. He would also explicitly promise that he would break Brock Lesnar's neck upon his return to the WWE.
Brock, I'm gonna break your neck.
The next week, Heyman would instruct his assistant Don Marie to draft a letter to Holly, informing him that his suspension would remain in effect. Brock Lesnar and Luchador Rey Mysterio. Despite a severe height and weight handicap, Mysterio would display a valiant effort in this matchup, connecting with his 619 and West Coast pop, but would ultimately lose by submission. Immediately following the match, a fan in a Rey Mysterio mask would attempt to rush the ring. The fan would remove his mask to reveal it was actually Hardcore Holly in disguise. During the final moments of the show, Holly would beat down Lesnar, ejecting him from the ring. The next week, the still suspended Hardcore Holly would be stopped by security while walking into the building, only to reveal that he had been personally invited to the show by Paul Heyman himself. Brock Lesnar, Matt Morgan, and Paul Heyman would make their way to the ring, where A-Train would be already waiting. Lesnar would rip into A-Train for losing his match against the future Prince of Punk, Shannon Moore, the previous week. Holly would do an interview with Josh Matthews, stating that he had no choice but to agree to Heyman's all-or-nothing proposition. Shannon Moore. Moore would slowly walk to the ring, his ribs wrapped with tape. Holly would be escorted to the ring by security, while his partner lay injured, unable to stand up, who would attempt another pinfall after a flying clothesline. Morgan would throw Holly to the outside. Back in the ring, Morgan would execute a sit-down powerbomb, but Holly would kick out, much to Brock's chagrin. The first SmackDown of 2004 would see Rey Mysterio defeat Tajiri for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. The Big Show would interrupt Mysterio's celebration to plug his new Chicks Dig It Big t-shirt on sale at WWE.com. An annoyed Mysterio would throw the shirt into the crowd, resulting in a beatdown. Holly would start the match off throwing stiff right hooks. The Big Show would retake the upper hand, throwing Holly into the corner. Holly would fight his way out, only to be cut off again with a clothesline and an elbow. The Big Show would begin wearing down Holly, giving him a headbutt to the back of the neck, as well as a hog log for a 2 count. Holly would attempt a recovery, fighting back with some kicks, only to be cut off by the Big Show, who would continue to abuse Holly's surgically repaired neck. The missed clothesline would see Holly take out Big Show's knee, turning the tables, and Holly would deliver a net snap on the top rope. A side slam would stop Holly in his tracks, and the Big Show would follow it up with a shoulder breaker. The January 8, 2004 episode of SmackDown, originating from Holly's home state of Alabama, would see Hardcore Holly take on the Big Show in a non-title street fight. The next week, the Big Show would appear in a neck brace, surrounded by police officers present to enforce a 50-foot restraining order against Hardcore Holly. Brock would call Holly a loose cannon and declare that he would stay at Big Show's side the entire length of the program in order to ensure the restraining order was upheld. Ringside commentator Michael Cole would accuse Lesnar of being afraid of Holly, and state that Holly just wanted to remain at the Big Show's side for his own protection. Later that night, the Big Show, accompanied by Brock Lesnar, would face Funaki in a Royal Rumble qualifying match. Hardcore Holly would appear at the entrance ramp but go no further due to the presence of the police. The Big Show would easily defeat Funaki following a WMD, and he and Lesnar would celebrate in the ring while Holly tactfully retreated backstage. This match was booked as payback for Cena and Benoit forcing Heyman to eat a bar of soap on the previous week's episode. Cena, Benoit, Rhino, Morgan, but the Big Show would be nowhere to be found when his music hit. Nonetheless, the match would proceed with Paul Heyman watching from above in a lifeguard's chair at ringside. After an extended beatdown on Cena, Benoit would get the hot tag, clearing house and handing out German suplexes. The feud would come to a head at the 2004 Royal Rumble, before settling into a very weak-looking reverse bear hug. Holly would once again break free and attempt a comeback. Lesnar would then apply a head and arm lock, putting pressure on Holly's surgically repaired neck. Holly would power out of the hold, retaking the offense with a flying clothesline and dropkick, then execute his finishing maneuver, the Alabama Slam. After months of build, this match would serve as a disappointing payoff. Discounting the brawl before the match officially started, Lesnar would remain in control of the offense nearly the entirety of the 6-minute contest, with Holly mounting only brief attempts at a comeback. Actually winning the world title would show very little aggression here, instead attempting to out-wrestle the former NCAA heavyweight champion. In the hardcore truth, Holly would write that he was dissatisfied with this match and its booking. According to Holly, Lesnar was uninterested in working with him, and he didn't believe the feud would draw money. Holly felt that his comeback was mishandled. In his book, Death Clutch, My Story of Determination, Domination, and Survival, Brock Lesnar would say little of this feud, except that working with Holly. Following this feud, Hardcore Holly would move back down the card, forming short-lived tag teams with Billy Gunn and Charlie Haas in unsuccessful attempts to capture the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, before going on to feuds with the likes of Orlando Jordan and Ken Kennedy. Holly would unsuccessfully challenge for the title in a steel cage match on an episode of ECW in February of 2007. Holly would move to the Raw roster in June of 2007, feuding and then teaming with Cody Rhodes, before last appearing at the Night of Champions pay-per-view in 2008. After months of inactivity and over a decade of employment, the WWE would announce Holly's release on January 16, 2009. Brock would depart the company following this match, eventually becoming the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, before returning to the WWE on a part-time basis in April of 2012. For the record, I don't think Holly sandbagged Lesnar. There just isn't any evidence and it doesn't make sense to me. I believe it was an accident. Holly was never an overly popular wrestler. He kept his job because he did what he was told and he could make others look good. But here he was having a match with the world champion on SmackDown. And this wasn't a squash either. Holly looked competitive here. Hardcore Holly would note that following this run, he wasn't even booked for that year's WrestleMania. They found 50 spots on the show that year. 50 spots and 10 years on the payroll, and I wasn't in their top 50. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. Please leave any comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.